So I want to watch some of this trial. This is a civil trial happening in the state of Washington right now. This is the opening statement from the lawyer Karen Koehler, Koehler. This is the lawyer for the family of Summer Taylor. Summer Taylor, who is going to get hit by a methed out driver. He was methed out on opioids, and he's going to wreck into her, killing her. And they said that the state is responsible as well. So let's take a listen.
Well, you're going to learn a lot about this case. You're not going to hear just headlines or a Twitter post or a paragraph or two. We're going to go into a deep dive in this case. And the plaintiff here, just as a reminder, is the estate of Summer Taylor and Summer's family. The defendant, this is abundantly clear, is the state of Washington. Also, there's another defendant who's not here. He's in jail, and that is Dawit Kelete. So there are two defendants and then one set of plaintiffs. I promise you, and I hate to say I promise, but I will promise you, that by the end of this case, your understanding of what happened here will be upside down from what you're thinking right now. Let's begin. I want to also give you one more promise.
The case is going to be upside down from what we're thinking. I mean, I don't know why would she presume that we're thinking one thing or another? I'll tell you some of the details of this case, okay? So here is Summer Taylor. Summer Taylor was at a Black Lives Matter protest. And so perhaps that's what she's thinking. Maybe she's talking to the silent majority of the state of Washington. And so since she's a protester, well, clearly that conjures up different images. This is the George Floyd protest, Black Lives Matter protest, and it was on Interstate 5, and they had shut off the on-ramps, but not the off-ramps, or they shut off the off-ramps, but not the on-ramps. They shut off most of the ramps, but the guy drove the wrong way. We'll just say that. And I wish they would actually be more specific about what happened. I got a short little clip of the guy driving towards the protesters, but they don't show the actual hitting, which I guess is gruesome, but it would show you at least the extent of the damage, and it would get more sympathy for Summer Taylor. She's going to promise that they're not going to show you any of those details. So that's essentially the deal right there. Summer Taylor is on I-75 with about a group of 20 folks, and the guy, a methed out driver named Dawit Kelete, Kelete, is going to drive into them. And Diaz Love is going to be severely injured, and Summer Taylor is going to be killed. Diaz Love is going to have traumatic brain injury and displacements, fractures, lacerations, and displacements. So Dawit Kelete was 27. This happened July 4th, 2020. So it happened over 4 years ago. There was a criminal case. Dawit Kelete already pleaded out. He pleaded guilty, and he's serving a 6.5-year prison sentence. And so it happened 4 years ago, and so I don't know how long his case took, but he could be out in 2 or 3 years, and then he'll be on probation for a year and a half. Now, if it was like Alec Baldwin, we could just say it wasn't Dawit Kelete's fault. It was the meth dealer's fault. The meth gave him a bad batch of meth, and that was illegal, so it was actually the guy who gave him the meth, and it wasn't the person that actually did it. Dawit Kelete is going to plead guilty to vehicular manslaughter or vehicular homicide because it was an accident. That's why he got, I guess, a short sentence. So that is Summer Taylor. R.I.P. to Summer Taylor. She was protesting. That's an American thing to do. It was on the interstate. And I don't want to say that they should be watching out for speeding cars. So the cops, in a way, I guess I could see it both ways, right? You're on the interstate protesting, so if you're a commerce or a driver, you might think, well, hell, you were just asking for it. You were just asking for it, and you should have been watching out for the cars. But the police could have said no to the whole thing. They're suing Washington State. They're suing Dawit Kelete, which I don't know how much money he's going to have, but they're also suing the state of Washington because the state troopers had parked their vehicles to block the ramps. And so in a way, the police were actually blocking them off, blocking traffic off so people could do their protest. Right now, Washington has a governor's race between these two guys, Bob Ferguson and Dave Reichert. They just had a runoff election. I'm going to say last month, the top two people was one Democrat and one Republican. It doesn't always happen like that. And they seem to be pretty standard when it comes to their views. The GOP, he's talking about crime, immigration, and who cares about health care. Bob Ferguson is talking about Roe v. Wade and, other things. So it's between Bob Ferguson and Dave. Bob Ferguson's for unions and Dave Reichert. Bob Ferguson is on the left and Dave Reichert, Reichert, is on the right. I don't know if they have any thoughts about this whole matter. Here is the guy, Dawit Kelete. He's the guy that was driving, which is ironic, is it not, since it was a Black Lives Matter protest. He seems maybe more brown, more Arabic, but his facial hair, he's brown or black. A white supremacist wouldn't give a damn either way, right? But since I'm multicultural, I want to be precise with it. So a little bit black, a little bit brown. I don't know any more than that. Probably all American, probably born here. So they said he was 30 years old when he was sentenced. So I guess it took 3 years, the criminal trial did. And if it took 3 years, then that means he's only served about 1 or 2 years, and that means he'll be getting out in 4.5 years. I think, or unless they had him behind bars already. So that is him. And we're going to have, let's see here. Was this one? Here's the video of the actual car that's driving towards him. And so just looking at this scene right here, you see the two cars. Right, it looks like either police cars or regular cars are blocking the interstate. And then here comes Kelete, Dawit Kelete. He's driving that way. He's going to go through the blocking, and then he's going to hit two of the protesters. So let's just take a quick look at this.
The man who drove into a crowd of protesters on I-5 3 years ago will spend more than 6 years behind bars. During sentencing today,
so you saw that he actually kind of swerved away from that white van. So I would assume that's a police car, but it might not be a police car. I'm not for sure. But they were somehow saying that it was the police's fault. In addition, I could see both ways. The police could always do more. They could have made sure the off-ramp, on-ramp, all the ramps. The person is dead, so you're pissed off, and hell, it's probably the whole world's fault, right? Who did this to my Summer Taylor? And so I could see it both ways. I could see the state being at fault or not at fault. So I think she does probably have a tough case, because in general, it's like the police were there. They already blocked it off. How much more did you want to do it? He swerved away. So what could the cops have done? Been in their car and drove forward? Could they have put like metal barricades up? Could they have had like 4 or 5 other cars? But I'm sure they could have done more. We all could have done more. So let's go back to the case. That's pretty much a briefing right there.
We will not, in opening, show you anything that's graphic or horrifying. In fact, we will not show you anything that's graphic. The plaintiff will not show you anything that's graphic or horrifying in this case. This story has a horrible ending, and everybody knows it. You don't need to see it. So you can relax. You're not going to have to brace yourself for something terrible. All right.
I think that's actually a bad strategy. If you're trying to get the sympathy of the jury, then you'd want them to see how Summer Taylor and Diaz Love got hit You know, maybe she's thinking that the videotape, like she's trying to make it seem like it's compassionate, and maybe the videotape exonerates the police officers or something. And I thought that he was going on the off-ramp and there was an on-ramp, and so it was obvious, but the cars were actually there, so he actually just kind of swerved around the cars. She's going to do a little tic-tac-toe thing here, and she's going to say that when she plays with her son likes to play tic-tac-toe by just hurrying up and putting 3 O's right across the way because, you know, he's just wants to win. So I guess it's saying something about not caring about the rules of society or something. And then sometimes he wants to draw more squares all around the thing. So I'm not sure what that analogy is for. So let's just kind of fast forward it. Let's just listen to this. I'm just going to I haven't seen this yet, so.
June 27, 2020.
I only saw the beginning.
It's official. It's on the WSP paperwork, and it goes out, press release to the public. To be publicized. Statement from Chief John R. Batiste on the need for occasional roadway closures. Exhibit number 212. You'll have a lot of exhibits, and they'll always tell you what the numbers are. That's a good one. Exhibit number 212 will be an important exhibit in this case. It shows up. Now you're going to be able to see the whole thing, and I just have pulled out part of it. We also understand and share the shock of the events. He's explaining again to the public why they're going to be inconvenienced by diversions. You understand and share the shock.
Okay, so the exhibit, it's more look like just some sort of public statement or something. So, I mean, I'm not for sure what the point is. Let's just kind of skip through it because this goes on for an hour and 13 minutes, right?
A new study says that homeowners with
oh my
solar
goodness,
panels
we'll
receiving
get right
thousands.
after this
The
one.
research
Just let
by
it
the
play.
War-
Give you a minute.
Now the state, of course, will say, well, the protesters are the ones that change the rules. Just like Liam changed the rules on me. But the plaintiff will talk about who's in power here. Who had the right to make the rules however they wanted them. This collision occurred at 1:36-ish a.m. on July 4th. So it was a protest that started on June 3rd. July 3rd. Starting on June 16th. The state changed the rules so that before the protesters got to the freeway, they closed it. They pre-closed the freeway so the protesters could be on it safely. June 16th was the first of that date. They did it on the 17th, the 18th, the 19th. I'm not going to write it all down. They did it every day except for 3, June 20th, June 29th, and July 1st. And they only didn't do it because the protesters weren't around. In fact, not only did they close it for 15 days from June 16th to July 3rd in advance of the protesters getting there, not only did they close it in advance, they closed it about 30 times during this time period.
I mean, that sounds like they're doing a lot of due diligence. They're doing a lot of work. They want to protest, Black Lives Matter, and they're protesting police brutality. And here the police are protecting those who are protesting police brutality. So in a way, they're actually upholding the First Amendment. Pretty good. I'm not for sure. It's like, where is she going with this? I don't know if I like her demeanor. I don't know if she seems confident enough. I don't know if she seems confident enough in her own case, or if she's been talking to other people and has articulate her views on, her worldview and everything. So,
and you be law enforcement, like Assistant Chief Martin here, you say, you get your bullhorn and you say, you are to get off the freeway right now. Otherwise, you are going to face an action. You're going to get in trouble. Okay. moment, you are disrupting, wait, what is that called? Let me get this right.
Obstructing justice, disrupting the flow of commerce.
I can't remember if it's obstructing justice or disrupting peace, but something bad, like you're disrupting. Now you've violated a law. Now they'll take you off. And you've heard talk about, well, it's illegal to be on freeway. Is it? In this case? So they change the rule. Now, how do they change the rule, physically? What do they do to do this? Well, there's two agencies. There's State Patrol and there's DOT, which is the Department of Transportation for State of Washington. They work together to do this. And you'll see maps and all this stuff later. It's honestly kind of interesting. Because what you think would happen isn't really what happens. So you don't see a line of cars anywhere. There's no cars anywhere because they've all been diverted. They're inconvenienced. Batiste statement talks about the inconvenience. There's inconvenience.
All right, let's keep on going here.
Email from State Patrol to each other. Chief Batiste is on here. Everybody's on here. And what's interesting is, look at what the importance is. Normal. That's another normal day because we changed the rules. There are new normal rules. This is not an emergency or a crisis. Signs off. So these are just internal emails. In fact, this email is written just a couple minutes after the protesters arrived on the freeway.
So she's doing a lot of talking, and I wish you actually would, frankly, you could show the video straight up, It's almost, if she doesn't introduce that video into evidence, then maybe the other side will. If neither side enters that video into evidence, even though just the beginning of what we saw, they don't really know the deal. They don't know the position. They don't know where the person was standing, where they weren't standing. That's what it's going to really come down to. Could they have prevented it? Were they in a position to prevent it? If you were the police officer, would you have done something different? If they would have had one more officer or two more officers?
So the two entities have figured out who goes where and how they're going to do it and what they're going to use to do it. And you'll hear testimony of what they do. But there we go. All right, so...
Then I once heard that all this case comes down to whether or not you like the defendant or whether you like the...
You can sell this $5 spatula on
the other guy, the defendant or the plaintiff.
Of other spatulas.
But the plaintiff in this case can't testify since she's dead. They might call Diaz Love up to the stand. And then I heard that they were going to get a recording of Dawit Kelete. They're going to get a Zoom meeting or a taped statement. I guess there's no transcript from the criminal trial or any videotape, or I guess he didn't make any public comments.
The closest that they would have been about 2 miles away. Had done their march. They started in Capitol Hill by Cal Anderson Park, and then they march and they end up over to this area near Stewart Street, and they had a little incident where an off-duty officer had, I can't remember if they had gone into the protesters, but it was an incident that was discombobulating to the protesters. It was a Russian with a vehicle, but all ended well. And from there, they were just steps away from going up to the freeway. So there was a big police response there. Okay, take away the illegal part. They walked onto a freeway. They put their life at risk because cars go on freeways.
Yeah, good point.
Under normal circumstances, I think we'd all agree with that. I don't been unfortunate to see people trying to cross the freeway. It's not good when cars are going fast. It's completely different when you've told the protesters that you're going to close the freeway for them. You do in fact close the freeway for them, but you leave part of it open. So the question is, was Summer Taylor negligent for not realizing that the state had left part of the freeway open? Now, some of this will involve your decisions, just weighing the evidence, listening to the testimony, looking at the exhibits. But in this case, the state, through Assistant Chief Martin, will testify. It's a double negative in here, so I'm quoting, so I apologize, but it's a double negative. It was not unreasonable for Summer Taylor to go on that freeway after the public was closed, after the public was told that it would be closed.
Not reasonable is reasonable. Okay, not unreasonable. So what's your point?
Things other than Summer that were involved in the crash.
Okay, we got some pictures here.
Things other than Summer that were involved in the crash.
Is that the car?
This is a surveillance video from a building or street sign, I can't remember which. So what I told you previously was that there's two off-ramps. This off-ramp is the, sorry, make sure you can hear me. This off-ramp is from the express lanes. This one here. This off-ramp is Stewart Street from I-5. Okay. This vehicle going up this off-ramp is Mr. Kelete, who's in jail, and whose negligence has already been established. That's a done deal. Now, when you see this vehicle going up...
So he was supposed to go there, but instead he turns this way. I think. That's what she's saying.
That's what this case is about. And I'm going to show you...
God, I was thinking it was like a four-way, so like on a typical interstate, you got like a nice long on-ramp and a nice long off-ramp, right?
And this is what he's taking pictures of to show you, because what happens is Mr. Kelete is going to go up here, and then he's going to just turn and then go this way, and then there's going to be an impact.
More than 1.4
Man, she should totally have shown that video, because it's hard to follow just her words and her explanation. She's not being very precise with it.
Number of vehicles, of cones, about...
And I thought you only had 10 minutes for an opening. She's going on for 40 minutes.
About damages.
And then you only got 3 days, right? And then if you can't put, and this is a civil trial too, so.
Evidence from different people about different things. And we don't always get, we don't have
I think the silent majority, I guess that's the Steve Puz. Steve Puz is the Attorney General's lawyer. I'm just thinking about who would be on the side of Black Lives Matter protesters. I would be, versus other people who are not. Now, I would probably be partial towards the Black Lives Matter protesters, because, you know, it is ridiculous that cops do all this crazy crap and get away with it. George Floyd murder was ridiculous. He just stayed on the guy's head the whole time until he died. And I heard that guy actually got stabbed in prison. There's Mr. Puz, Steve Puz.
Good morning again.
And actually, looking at their names, he doesn't look like a Puz.
You don't ask the question. When you make no effort to investigate, it's easy to let your imagination run and come up with explanations patients with what you want instead of what's actually going on. There are some rules in this case that control the state's perspective. What happened? One, you're not allowed to knowingly, intentionally drive the wrong way up an exit ramp to a freeway.
Right.
Second, for the love of Pete, pedestrians are prohibited from going on the freeway. It's difficult for me to believe that I need to say that out loud. But here we are. I am going to say it out loud. And you're going to hear that from a whole lot of witnesses in this case. You know, it's okay. It's completely okay, appropriate, to honor people who protested the brutal murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis police. And for those who continue to fight against institutional injustice, systemic racism, and discrimination. But it's also appropriate, and you're going to hear witnesses talk about that, the line be drawn. It's not okay for anybody to act recklessly and dangerously and illegally and put people at risk. Yeah. And that's what happened here. Mr. Kelete intentionally drove the wrong way up an exit ramp. He was convicted of vehicular homicide for killing Miss Taylor. It's undisputed that Miss Taylor was on the freeway. The state's perspective illegal. But for those illegal acts, those parties, this crash never happened. And at the conclusion of this trial, the conclusion of all of the evidence, come back in front of you. I'm going to ask you to return a verdict that finds Mr. Kelete and Miss Taylor solely responsible for this crash. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, that's pretty good. He could be stronger. I feel like his face seemed like he indicated he was more of a linebacker, but he did a pretty good job. I think overall he did a pretty good job. He said that it comes down to just them two. You shouldn't have been on the interstate. He shouldn't have drove off the exit ramp. It's between you and him. And what the state was doing was trying their best to protect the protesters, but crap happened. So they did their best. They couldn't have predicted it. He did an illegal thing, and nobody expected it. She wasn't expecting it. So they're kind of saying that, in a way, Summer Taylor, it kind of sounds bad, right, to say that the person that was killed, that she was responsible. They were in a group. They were legally protesting. You want to get your protest heard. The cops were protecting them for like 15 days. But I guess the argument against that is like, well, since they were protecting them for like 15 days or 20 days or whatever it was, since they were protecting them for so many days, there was a protocol. So there was a standard protocol. You had the cops over here. They could go off the exit ramp. That you could go from this, march over here to march there. You could get on the exit ramp, and then we would protect you. So because they had been protecting them the whole time, well, they left the loophole. They could have, I guess, cordoned the exit ramp off better. Could have had another car. Could have had, and actually from that one video that I saw, it saw from a different perspective. It almost just seemed like it was on like a regular road. So seeing it from this perspective, they really should just show like all the videotapes that they have. So let's hear more from this. Steve Putz.
In truth, the story that led to an incredibly tragic and Mr. Cleate's vehicular homicide began on June 15th of 2020. It was on that day the protesters walked into live traffic on I-5. Now, you're going to hear from a lot of witnesses, both from the state and actually from the plaintiffs. Experts are going to tell you what you already know. It's incredibly dangerous for anybody to walk into traffic on I-5. I-5 is a limited access highway, technical term. That means, for the rest of us, and what you're going to learn, is that it's limited to motorized vehicles. It's a high-speed highway. Yeah, speed limit 60 miles an hour. Well, why is that important? As you will hear and learn, cars traveling 60 miles an hour, that is 88 feet every second. Just shy of 30 yards. Meaning that every 3.4 seconds, a car going 60 miles an hour covers the entire length of the Seahawks football field. Plaintiff's own accident reconstruction expert, Mr. Hartson, will tell you that a driver's typical perception reaction time, how long it takes a driver to notice the problem, the hazard in front of them, come up with a plan of what they're going to do, and start to execute it. It's 1.6 seconds.
Let's just clip two more minutes because it's gone past 30 minutes. He's doing a pretty good job. If anything, he's kind of over-explaining.
Were directed in large part, for the most part.
I don't know if she laid a good case, and if he would just say, "Oh, come on, guys," and then just sit down and make a closing of 1 minute.
Officers were injured.
I think he's over-explaining himself.
State Patrol wanted to you're going to hear evidence that the State Patrol tried to de-escalate that situation and not have that confrontational. Cleate's day was that day. Earlier that day, he had consumed drugs.
He said, "For love of Pete."
For his brothers and Peanut and Mark.
For the love of Pete.
And he got off work, and he got in his white Jaguar, and he decided he was going to try and go home. And he went to the I-5, hoping to get on it and go southbound. And when he got to the on-ramp, actually it was the on-ramp that the protesters for people to walk onto it. Not ever. Everybody is required to comply with the traffic control devices that close the freeway. It's almost that simple. And it's not okay for people to determine on their own, without asking anybody, to determine on their own that the law doesn't apply to me. It's not okay. And it's not okay when it puts people, either themselves or other
That guy does not seem like he's
people at risk. And
interested in any of this.
It,
So, interesting opening and closing. I think both of them could have done a better job overall, really, to be honest with you. But the details that I had said before were right, because I did see the video or the pictures of it. It looks a little different because the on-ramp and the off-ramp are kind of close. So it wasn't like he had to drive all the way around. He just kind of make a split decision and then went to the other side. I guess they could have had another police car or some sort of barricade there. They are protesting. She did take some sort of risk there. Because I'm partial, I want Summer Taylor to get some justice. She was killed, and she was killed by Dawit Kelete, and Dawit Kelete is going to serve 6.5 years in prison. I mean, you took a life. Why wouldn't that get you 10, 20 years? You took a life. And it was like, well, it was an accident. I mean, he was on meth. Well, meth is illegal too, And if he was Alec Baldwin, I guess they would have just found some sort of reason to dismiss the whole damn thing. And So I think she's set up this case very weakly, and I could see it going both ways, but I feel like just looking at how the lawyers have presented the case, she didn't seem very confident in her own case. He seems extremely confident, but he does seem to explain himself a little bit. So, yeah, I wonder how long this trial will take. I wonder how much money this takes for the state to just have a trial like this. And I wonder if the plaintiff will get the verdict that they want to. It's interesting that this really even, I guess, seen the light of day, to be honest with you. And why couldn't they a plea bargain? What are they trying to get, $1 million? I mean, the state probably would have offered them some money just so they don't have to go through all this rigmarole. But there you go. That's what's going on in Washington State. I wonder what Bob Ferguson and Dave Reichert has to think about any of this. And that's it.